Chapter 1: The First Storm. In a small Himalayan village, a young boy named Arun lived with his mother and grandmother. Life had always been modest but peaceful, until a fateful storm ravaged their home. The winds howled, the rain poured relentlessly, and in its wake, the storm left their house in ruins. Worse still, Arun's beloved grandmother passed away during the calamity. Arun's world felt shattered. He watched his mother, a resilient yet burdened woman, hold back tears as she salvaged what little was left. Amid this despair, she took Arun by the hand and led him to a centuries-old Buddhist temple at the edge of the village. "In the darkest storms," she whispered, "the brightest light comes from within." Chapter 2: A Master's Wisdom. Inside the temple, Arun met Lama Tenzin, a serene monk with eyes that seemed to see right into the soul. Tenzin shared with him the story of Emperor Ashoka, a conqueror who transformed into a compassionate leader after witnessing the horrors of his own war. "The greatest battle," Tenzin said, "is not fought on the battlefield but within the mind. What happens outside us are merely trials. What matters is how we respond." To help Arun find his calm amidst the storm of grief, Tenzin taught him a simple practice: sit quietly and focus on his breath. First, Arun found it nearly impossible. His thoughts were a whirlwind. But over time, he discovered that, in the stillness, his racing mind began to quiet. He began to feel moments of peace. Chapter 3: The Lesson of Failure. As Arun grew older, the teachings of Lama Tenzin stayed with him. Even when he left his village for the bustling city, Arun dreamed of building a better life. But the harsh realities of urban life quickly dashed his hopes. Months passed as he struggled to find a job. Rejections piled up, and Arun felt like a failure, sitting alone in a crowded park. Arun recalled the story of Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks. Schultz faced countless rejections when pitching his idea of a cafe centered on customer experience. But instead of letting failure define him, Schultz saw each rejection as a stepping stone toward success. Arun realized that his failures, too, could become lessons. Taking a deep breath, he resolved to keep trying, not with desperation, but with renewed clarity and patience. Chapter 4: Facing Fear. Arun eventually secured a position at a small company. His work was steady, but his biggest fear loomed: public speaking. The mere thought of presenting in front of colleagues paralyzed him. Arun remembered Lama Tenzin's story of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, as Mara, the personification of fear and temptation, tried to distract and frighten the Buddha. The Buddha responded with calm awareness. He neither fought nor fled but acknowledged Mara's presence without being swayed. Inspired, Arun decided to face his fear directly. Instead of avoiding presentations, he volunteered for small speaking opportunities. Each time, he reframed his fear as excitement, a chance to grow rather than a threat to his ego. Slowly, his fear loosened its grip, and Arun began to feel empowered. Chapter 5: The Strength of Compassion. As Arun climbed the ranks at his company, he noticed a quiet new hire named Ravi, who often sat alone during lunch. Ravi was the target of subtle mockery from some colleagues, which reminded Arun of how lost he had felt when he first moved to the city. Arun approached Ravi and struck up a conversation. Over time, they became friends, and Arun encouraged Ravi to take on challenges that helped build his confidence. This simple act of compassion transformed Ravi's outlook and strengthened Arun's own sense of purpose. The Dalai Lama once said, "Compassion and love are not luxuries. They are necessities for human survival." Arun realized that resilience wasn't just about personal strength. It was also about lifting others. Chapter 6: The Middle Way in Leadership. Years later, Arun became the CEO of a tech startup. Success brought new challenges: high-pressure deadlines, investor expectations, and internal conflicts. During a critical financial crisis, Arun's team was on the verge of panic. Drawing on the teachings of Lama Tenzin, Arun reminded his team, "We cannot control what has already happened, but we can choose how we respond." Instead of focusing on the setbacks, Arun guided his team to focus on solutions. He also practiced mindfulness during this time, recalling how leaders like Jeff Bezos approach challenges with focus and adaptability. By staying calm and grounded, Arun led his company through the storm. Chapter 7: Returning to the Roots. With time, Arun's perspective shifted. He realized that true success wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by the connections we foster and the impact we leave behind. Feeling a pull to return to his village, Arun decided to build a community center to support struggling families. On the day of the center's opening, Arun addressed the gathered crowd. "The storm that took everything from me as a child taught me the most important lesson of my life. The greatest strength is not in resisting the storm, but in finding the light within yourself to endure it." Chapter 8: The Weight of Success. Arun's startup had weathered its financial crisis, but as it grew, Arun felt the strain of balancing ambition and ethics. Investors pushed for profit margins that conflicted with his values, and Arun found himself torn between pleasing them and preserving the integrity of his team. One evening, as he sat alone in his office, Arun recalled the story of King Ashoka. After his conquest of Kalinga, Ashoka was horrified by the suffering he had caused. He turned to Buddhism, transforming himself into a ruler guided by compassion and justice. Ashoka's reign became a model of ethical leadership, prioritizing the welfare of his people over expansion or personal gain. Inspired by Ashoka, Arun chose to hold firm to his principles, even at the cost of short-term profits. He introduced sustainable practices into his company, focusing on long-term value. Though this decision initially met resistance, over time, it earned Arun respect and loyalty from his team and clients. Reflection. This chapter highlights the Buddhist teaching of right livelihood, encouraging ethical practices that align with one's values. Chapter 9: The Empty Cup. Despite his successes, Arun began to feel restless. He noticed a growing ego within himself, fueled by accolades and praise. Seeking clarity, he decided to visit Lama Tenzin in the mountains, yearning for guidance. When Arun arrived, Lama Tenzin greeted him warmly and invited him to tea. As they spoke, Arun boasted about his achievements, his struggles, and the lessons he had learned. Lama Tenzin listened patiently, then began pouring tea into Arun's cup. The cup soon overflowed, but Lama continued pouring. "Master," Arun said, "the cup is full. It can't hold any more." Lama smiled. "Like this cup, your mind is too full of what you think you know. To truly learn and grow, you must first empty it." This simple yet profound teaching reminded Arun of the importance of humility and openness. He resolved to approach life not as an expert but as a student, ready to learn from every experience. Lesson. This story emphasizes Shoshin, beginner's mind, a Zen concept that encourages curiosity and openness, even for those with experience. Chapter 10: The Candle in the Dark. One of Arun's childhood friends, Megha, reached out to him for help. Megha had been battling depression and felt lost after losing her job. Arun invited her to stay at his home and shared with her the Buddhist story of the blind men and the elephant. The Buddha once told this story to illustrate how partial understanding can distort reality. Several blind men touched different parts of an elephant. One felt the trunk and thought it was a snake. Another felt the leg and thought it was a tree. Each believed they had grasped the truth but missed the bigger picture. Arun explained, "Sometimes, when we're in pain, we only see a part of the problem, but the truth is much bigger. What seems like the end might just be the start of something new." He encouraged Megha to practice gratitude and mindfulness, focusing on the small moments of light in her day. Gradually, Megha regained her strength and found a new path, one that was more aligned with her passions. Lesson. This chapter showcases right view, understanding the world with clarity, and seeing beyond immediate challenges. Chapter 11: The Trial of Forgiveness. Arun's most profound challenge came when he discovered that an old business partner, Nikhil, had been spreading false rumors about him to competitors. This betrayal stung deeply, and Arun wrestled with anger and resentment. One night, he remembered the story of Angulimala, a feared bandit who wore a necklace of severed fingers. When Angulimala encountered the Buddha, he intended to kill him, but the Buddha greeted him with compassion. Touched by the Buddha's fearlessness and kindness, Angulimala abandoned his violent ways and became a monk, seeking redemption. Arun reflected on this story and realized that holding on to anger would only harm himself. Instead, he reached out to Nikhil, offering an olive branch. Though their relationship remained strained, Arun's decision to forgive lifted a heavy burden from his heart. Lesson: forgiveness is not about excusing harmful behavior, but about releasing oneself from the chains of resentment. This aligns with the Buddhist practice of metta, loving kindness. Chapter 12: The Wisdom of Impermanence. As Arun grew older, he began to experience the inevitable losses that come with time. His mother passed away, and his mentor Lama Tenzin fell gravely ill. Arun returned to the village to be by Lama Tenzin's side during his final days. On a quiet morning, Lama Tenzin shared his last teaching. "Arun, do you remember the storm that brought you to me as a boy? It destroyed much, but it also planted the seeds for your growth. Life is like this, impermanent, ever-changing. Cling to nothing, but cherish everything." When Lama Tenzin passed, Arun mourned deeply but found solace in his mentor's words. He realized that impermanence was not something to fear but a reminder to live fully and authentically. Lesson: this chapter illustrates anicca, impermanence, teaching us to embrace change and find beauty in life's fleeting moments. Chapter 13: Passing the Torch. Arun's community center in his village had become a sanctuary for those in need, a place where people could learn mindfulness, share their struggles, and find support. Arun, now in his twilight years, began mentoring a young woman named Kavya, who reminded him of his younger self. Kavya was filled with questions about life, purpose, and resilience. Arun shared his journey, weaving in the stories of Ashoka, Angulimala, and the Buddha himself. He emphasized that resilience is not a fixed trait but a practice, a series of choices made daily. Before Arun passed, he left Kavya with a final message. "The storms of life will come and go, but the light within you will always shine if you nurture it."